Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mr. DarXnights. I know many of you use these videos to relax or fall asleep. So before you drift off, leave a comment and let me know where you're listening from. And if you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get comfortable and begin. Story 1. The desert air was cold that night, far colder than it should have been for Arizona in early October. Trooper Mark Dwyer had driven this stretch of State Route 9,100 times over the last 5 years. But something about this night felt different. Not because the moon was unusually low or that the horizon shimmered with that eerie mirage-like haze. It was the silence. No coyotes howling in the distance. No rumble of semi-trucks carving through the open road. Just the steady hum of his cruiser's engine and the soft crackle of the radio. He glanced at the clock. 2:03 a.m. His shift would end in less than 2 hours, and so far it had been uneventful. He didn't mind the quiet shifts. Hell, he preferred them. But tonight, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt staged, manufactured, like a movie set where someone had paused everything but forgotten to tell him. That was when the headlights appeared in his rearview mirror. A single vehicle, approaching fast. Mark squinted, adjusted his mirror. The car wasn't swerving, just speeding. Seemed to be a black Dodge Charger, low to the ground, tires gripping the asphalt like it had something to prove. His cruiser's radar chirped, 92 in a 65. Without hesitation, he flicked the lights and turned his wheel, pulling out from his position behind the slope of an old desert bluff. The Charger didn't slow down immediately. It took nearly 15 seconds before its brake lights finally ignited, glowing red against the dusty blacktop. Mark parked behind it, killed his siren, and took a deep breath before stepping out into the cold. He approached cautiously, hand resting on the grip of his sidearm, not because he felt threatened, but because it was habit. Highway stops in the middle of nowhere were the kind of scenarios they warned you about in the academy. The driver's window was already down. "Evening, officer," the driver said calmly. Mark tilted his flashlight, illuminating the man's face. He looked to be in his early 30s. Clean-shaven, neat hair, wearing a dark hoodie. His hands were already on the wheel. Cooperative. Too cooperative. You were going a bit fast back there. Know how fast you were driving? About 90, yeah. Sorry about that. Just trying to make it to Harlow before dawn. Mark furrowed his brow. Harlow? The man nodded. Tiny town. Couple hours from here. Mark stood in silence for a second. There's no Harlow out this way. Not anymore. The man smiled faintly. Guess it's been a while. Mark narrowed his eyes. The man's voice wasn't threatening, but there was something about it. An undercurrent of detachment, like he wasn't entirely present. "License and registration, please." The man complied, slowly reaching into his glove compartment and pulling out a brown leather wallet and a folded paper. Mark accepted them, stepping back toward his cruiser. He kept an eye on the Charger as he sat down and entered the license into the system. The name, Brian Geller. License valid. No priors. Registration matched the vehicle. Nothing out of the ordinary. Mark glanced back at the Charger. Still there. He looked over the folded paper the man had handed him. Not registration. It was a map. A hand-drawn one. Lines drawn in blue ink. Town name scribbled in tiny capital letters. Harlow circled in red. But the map was old. It wasn't even close to accurate. Routes that had been renamed decades ago. Mark recognized maybe 3 road numbers. The rest outdated. It didn't make sense. When he looked back at the Charger, it was empty, door shut, no engine sound, no driver. Mark blinked, rubbed his eyes, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped out of the car. "Hello." He approached the Charger again, this time slower. No one in the front seat. He circled around to the passenger side, peering inside. Nothing. The man was gone. There were no footprints in the dust beside the car. No signs of a struggle. The engine had gone cold. The keys were gone too. His hand instinctively went to his radio. Dispatch, this is Dwyer. I need a 10 to 29 on a suspicious vehicle. Driver is missing. Repeat, driver is not present at the scene. The radio crackled back with static. Then nothing. He repeated the call. Still no response. Then something happened that would etch itself into his memory forever. From behind him, in the darkness, came the soft sound of a voice. Not loud, almost like it was coming from inside his own head. Still trying to get to Harlow? Mark spun around, flashlight beam dancing across the highway. No one. The wind picked up, kicking up a swirl of dust along the roadside. The map was still in his hand. He opened it again, the red circle around Harlow now smeared, like the ink had bled, but it hadn't been wet before. He returned to the cruiser and sat in stunned silence. He reached for his dashcam monitor, rewinding the feed. There was the Charger pulling over. There was him walking up to the car. There was the conversation. But after that, nothing. Just a long stretch of footage showing the Charger sitting empty. No trace of the man ever getting out. He just wasn't there anymore. Mark looked out at the road again. Mile marker 117 stood just up ahead, its rusted sign half bent from years of wind and wear. It flickered in his headlights like it was breathing. He made the decision to tow the vehicle and file a report back at the station. But inside, something had changed. It wasn't just a strange encounter. It felt like a crack had formed in his world. Something he couldn't explain, but could no longer ignore. Back at the station, his report was met with mild interest. Maybe the guy ran off into the desert. Maybe he hitched a ride. But that didn't explain the footage, or the map, or the complete lack of footprints. That night, Mark couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling in his small apartment. The events playing back his head like a loop tape. The name Harlow stayed with him. He searched it the next morning. Nothing. No town by that name in Arizona. But he kept digging. Finally, in an archived geological survey document from 1961, he found it. Harlow, Arizona. Founded 1897. Mining town. Population peaked at 250. Abandoned 1968 after a series of unexplained disappearances. Town was supposedly bulldozed and buried under sand to prevent trespassers. The location? Exactly near mile marker 117. Mark stared at the screen, his heart thudding in his chest. What did he see out there? Who or what did he speak to? And why did the map seem like a personal invitation? He retrieved the map again from his cruiser's glove box. A single drop of red ink had appeared over the town's name. He hadn't noticed it before. Beneath the circle, in tiny black print that hadn't been there the night before, was a message. Meet me where the time stopped. Mark didn't report for duty that night. He wasn't sick, and he wasn't tired. He was obsessed. The moment the ink appeared on that ancient map with the words, "Meet me where the time stopped," something had shifted in his brain. Logic hadn't disappeared, but it had been demoted, replaced by something deeper, older, a kind of instinct, a pull toward something he couldn't name. The town of Harlow was supposed to be gone, but if something was trying to contact him from it, he had to know what was waiting there. He packed a flashlight, his service weapon, 3 bottles of water, a compact first aid kit, and the map. He left his badge behind. Mark drove west, watching the desert roll by like a forgotten memory. The closer he got to mile marker 117, the less he felt like a police officer. He didn't feel like anything at all, just a set of eyes being guided towards something unseen. When the green, dented road marker appeared at the edge of the headlights, he slowed and pulled off to the gravel shoulder. He checked his watch. 2:11 a.m., the same minute the driver vanished the night before. No cars in sight, not even distant truck lights. The stillness felt surgical, like it had been designed for this moment alone. Mark stepped out, the cool air pressing in around him. The sand whispered beneath his boots as he walked past the sign, holding the old map in one hand, a flashlight in the other. He followed the route drawn in blue ink. Though it didn't match any of the real road grid, the dirt trail it pointed to look more like a dried-up wash than a path. Still, the second his boot touched that cracked earth, the air around him changed. A faint humming filled his ears. No, not a hum, a pulse. He paused and turned off his flashlight. The desert around him wasn't dark. It was faintly glowing, just barely, like moonlight filtering through dust. Shadows moved where there should have been none. The air didn't feel cold anymore. It felt still, too still. Mark walked another half-mile, the trail becoming more defined as he moved forward, until something caught his eye. A signpost, leaned at an angle, half buried in sand. The letters were almost erased, but not quite. Welcome to Harlow, population 0. His breath caught in his throat. There was no town, not visibly, just open desert stretching in every direction. But the ground here felt different, firmer, like something was buried beneath the surface. He scanned the area and stopped when he saw the faint remains of foundation for concrete blocks in a rectangle, no more than a foot high, like the ghost of a house long demolished. He stepped onto the platform, boots clicking softly. That's when the sound began. Not loud, just the ticking of a clock. Tick, tick, tick. He turned around. No clock in sight, but the noise was coming from under his feet, and with it came something else. A voice, female, whispering, "You were late." Mark froze. It wasn't in his head. It was real, external, not coming from a radio or a device, just from the air itself. Time's not the same here. He took a step back. His flashlight flickered. Then, just as quickly, the sound stopped. All of it. No wind, no ticks, no whispers, only silence. Mark raised his flashlight again and scanned his right. A shape, not a building. A person, standing maybe 30 feet away, facing him, unmoving. He called out, "Hello." No response. He took a cautious step forward. The figure raised a hand, not a wave, more like a slow acknowledgement. Then it turned and began to walk into the dunes. Against every bit of training and common sense, Mark followed. The desert grew colder with each step, as though every footprint left behind was draining warmth from air. The map in his hand grew heavier, the paper feeling almost damp. He called out again, "Hey, stop. Are you Brian Geller?" The figure didn't turn around. Mark jogged to catch up. But when he finally got within 20 feet, the man vanished. Gone. No sound. No motion. Like a hologram switched off mid-movement. Mark spun in a circle, scanning the darkness. Then he looked down. Footprints. Not just his. The man had left behind a full set, clearly indented in the sand, leading to nothing. But where those footprints ended, something else began. A hole, small, like the beginning of a tunnel dug into the earth. Against his better judgment, Mark crouched and peered inside. Wooden supports, old, crumbling, a mine shaft. He aimed his light into it, maybe 20 feet deep before it bent to the left. The map still in his hand showed no shaft, but a tiny X had been added in pencil. It hadn't been there before. He swore under his breath and slid into the hole, crawling on elbows and knees through the narrow tunnel. The deeper he went, the more the air felt stale, not rotten, just ancient, like breathing in the memory of something long dead. The tunnel opened into a small chamber, and as soon as he entered it, his flashlight died. Pitch black, not just dark, suffocating. Then came a sound. Gentle, wet breathing from multiple sources. He froze, listening. The breathing grew louder, surrounding him. Then, all at once, silence again. Mark's light sputtered and returned. Dim, flickering, but enough to show what stood before him. A wall covered in paper, maps, old ones, all hand-drawn, every single one with Harlow circled in red. Hundreds of them, stapled, nailed, or pinned to the wall with rusted nails. In the center was a photo. Trooper Mark Dwyer, his academy portrait, dated 2018. Pinned beside it, a photo of Brian Geller, but not as he looked the night before. In this image, he looked older, gaunt, his eyes hollowed out, hair longer, wearing the same hoodie, but torn and filthy. Mark staggered back, knocking over a small crate. Inside were dozens of driver's licenses. Some cracked, some melted, all old, all local. Every single one from someone reported missing on this highway in the last 20 years. The pieces began to click together, but not in any sane, rational way. It wasn't a serial killer's hideout. It was something else. A place where time folded in on itself, where people were collected, not murdered, removed. Mark didn't understand it, but he didn't need to. He just needed to leave. He turned and crawled back through the tunnel, heart pounding. When he emerged, the desert sky looked wrong. The stars were in different places, brighter, the moon higher than it had been before. He checked his phone. No signal, no time. The display was dead. He climbed to his feet and began retracing his steps back to the cruiser. But something had changed. The dirt path was gone. The signpost was missing. The highway was nowhere in sight. He was standing in open desert, and all around him, shadows flickered, figures watching, unmoving. He shouted, "I don't belong here." The figures stepped closer. One by one, they revealed themselves in the moonlight, men and women in old uniforms. Police, border patrol, rangers, some from decades past. All pale, silent, watching. A voice broke through the stillness behind him. "You were late, Mark." He spun. Brian stood there, but not as before. He was older now, eyes tired, face sunken. "How long have you been here?" Mark whispered. Brian didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside, revealing something in the sand. A marker, simple, metal, weathered by time. Trooper Mark Dwyer, End Watch, October 17th, 2023. The same day. Today, Mark's legs gave out. He fell to his knees, staring at the marker. The shadows surrounded him now. One reached out a hand. Another gently rested theirs on his shoulder. Time stopped here, remember? Mark closed his eyes, and the desert faded. The sun rose without ceremony over the Arizona desert, casting long, thin shadows across the sand. Mark didn't feel the warmth. He stood, drifted among the ruins of Harlow. But they weren't ruins anymore. Not quite. Overnight, the desert had bloomed into something else. Faded outlines of buildings shimmered in the morning haze. A barber shop with no windows. A gas station with no pumps. An old theater with a marquee that read simply, "You came back." The ghost town wasn't just appearing. It was remembering itself. Mark moved through the empty street, boots crunching over what looked like fine gravel but sounded more like crushed bone. His cruiser was gone. The highway gone. Even the map had disappeared from his hand. He no longer remembered when he last blinked. His breath didn't fog in the morning air. Not anymore. He walked without aim, like a child in a dream, until he reached the sheriff's office. An ancient brick building with a star-shaped badge etched into the door. It opened with a groan. Inside, a desk, a rusted radio, and on the far wall, mugshots. Hundreds. Faded, warped. Faces trapped in expressions of shock, grief, or confusion. All of them looked directly into the camera. Directly at him. And there, pinned dead center on the wall, his own photo. Trooper Mark Dwyer. His eyes looked different in it. Emptier, like something inside had started to hollow out. Behind him, the radio crackled. Unit 12, status report. Unit 12, respond. He turned. The voice was familiar. Dispatcher Carla, from his old post. Mark, you there? We lost you on GPS near marker 117. You okay? He stepped closer to the radio, trembling. It was the first voice he'd heard. That didn't belong to the others. He pressed the button. This is Unit 12. I'm here. I'm okay. I think. Silence. Then, Mark, are you saying this is a prank? Because we've been calling you for 2 days. Your cruiser's still running. Lights on. Empty. 2 days? He stared at his hands. They looked normal, but he no longer felt the need to move them. Breathing felt optional. His chest barely rose. We sent a search team. They didn't find you, Mark. Only something weird. A patch of desert that looked burned. Melted glass in the sand. Your boots were there. Just your boots. I'm still here, he whispered. More silence. Mark, listen carefully. Are you alone? No. Who's with you? He didn't answer, because he couldn't. The walls around him shimmered, and the sound of soft footsteps filled the hallway. The other officers, the ones who disappeared, the ones who stayed. They were walking toward him slowly, hands empty, faces neutral, not threatening, just welcoming, inviting him to stay. Carla's voice came through once more. Mark, get out of there. We think whatever that place is not on any map. It doesn't exist anymore. We checked satellite footage. There's no town, just a shimmer, like a heat wave, and the mile marker, it's gone, like it was never installed. I see everything, he replied quietly. What? I see the buildings, the signs, the people. I see the town like it's alive. A pause. Mark, if you see it, you can still come back. You have to come back. Please, say something. Say you're coming. He turned to face the door. The hallway was empty now. No officers. No sound. Just the radio hissing softly. He closed his eyes and spoke carefully. I think I crossed a line. I don't think it was made for me to cross back. Mark, please. But the static returned and the voice faded. He turned off the radio. Later, hours or minutes or centuries, Mark stood near the town limits, watching the desert ripple like a mirage. Another car appeared, not on the road, just appeared, like someone pulling a car from the deck of reality. A sheriff's cruiser, different make and model, early 2000s. The door opened. Out stepped a young man, confused, uniform wrinkled, eyes wide. He looked around, then down at the map in his hand. Mark watched from a distance. He knew the routine now. The first hour would be confusion, then the whispers, then the clocks, then the forgetting, and eventually the crossing over. He was no longer a victim of Harlow. He was part of it, just like Brian, just like the others. Bound not by death, but by displacement, like a memory left behind in a room that no longer exists. Mark turned and walked back toward town, where the streetlights had begun to flicker on despite the sun still sitting high in the sky. 1 year later, a documentary team from Phoenix set up near mile marker 117, researching local urban legends for a series about vanishing towns. They'd heard the rumors, GPS anomalies, disappearances, time loops. They brought drones, thermal cameras, geophones. Nothing worked right. The drone lost contact within 60 seconds. The footage it returned was corrupted. Frames of buildings that weren't on any map. Old storefronts. A faded sign, Harlow Pharmacy. The GPS blipped out and returned them to the wrong coordinates. 2 crew members said they heard ticking clocks behind them, though no equipment registered the sound. They left the next morning. Only one of the team, an audio engineer named Joel, returned weeks later. He didn't tell anyone. He came alone at 2 a.m. and walked straight toward the shimmer near the marker. He was never seen again. Back at the station, Carla still kept Mark's file open on her desk. She didn't believe he was dead, not in the traditional sense. She had dreams about him, standing at a gas station or walking into a diner where the menu only listed years instead of meals. Once, she received a voicemail on her personal phone. No ID, no return number, just a soft male voice saying, "It's not bad here, it's just not real," and then static. She never played it for anyone, but she kept the recording on her phone, just in case, because she believed, and maybe always had, that some roads don't lead anywhere you can point on a map. Some roads take you off the timeline. And if you go far enough and still and willingly, you might find yourself standing in a town no one else can see, where the clocks don't tick in real time, where your photo waits on a wall, where your story ends without ever really finishing, and someone else, new, lost, confused, will take your place, just like you did. Story 2. It started like any other night. Empty asphalt, long lines stretching into forever, and the kind of silence that settles in your bones when you've been driving too long and thinking too much. Cal Weston had been on the road 14 hours, hauling refrigerators west on Route 66 through a slice of Oklahoma flatland. So empty, it didn't feel like Earth anymore. The only light came from the pale glow of his dashboard and the occasional green mile marker, sliding past like a ghost in the dark. He reached for his thermos, half full of coffee that had long since gone cold. His eyes flicked to the rear view. That's when he saw it again. No headlights, no engine sound, just a shadow, long, broad, and unmistakably a semi-truck, drifting behind him on the road, keeping perfect pace. He blinked and leaned forward. His own taillights gave just enough reflection to catch his shape, but not enough to make out details. "Not again," he muttered. He hit the CB, but there was only static. No chatter, no warning, no confirmation that someone else was even out there. Just the endless whisper of the tires on concrete and the low hum of something that felt very wrong. Cal had first seen the truck 3 nights ago. Back then, he chalked it up to exhaustion. It tailed him for about 20 minutes and then gone, like it had dipped off the road and vanished into the dust. The next night, it came earlier, stayed longer. No lights, no plate, no driver. He tried to wave it off, accelerate, even pull over and let it pass. But it never passed. It only watched, waited, matched him turn for turn, like it was reading his thoughts. Tonight, it had been behind him since Tulsa. He checked the side mirror again. It was still there, pitch black, silent, a void rolling along the road just a few car lengths back. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911 with one hand, knuckles white on the wheel. 911, what's your emergency? There's a truck following me, Cal said. No headlights, no sound. It's been tailing me for an hour. Same thing happened the last 2 nights. Location, Route 66, just past mile marker 241. Headed west. I swear to God, there's something wrong with this truck. Describe the vehicle. Black semi, no markings, no plate. Looks wrong, like it's moving, but not really driving. I've been a long hauler for 20 years. I've seen breakdowns, convoys, convicts, everything. But this truck, this thing's empty. It's got no driver. There was a pause on the line. Sir, are you currently under any medications or feeling drowsy? Cal almost cursed. No, I'm wide awake. You think I'd be calling if I was hallucinating? I need someone out here. We've dispatched an officer to intercept. Stay calm and keep driving. Do not stop. Cal hung up without responding. He didn't want calm. He wanted answers. Behind him, the black semi loomed closer, so close he could no longer see its cab in the mirror. He slammed on the brakes. His trailer jolted, skidding slightly. Dust kicked up from the shoulder. He gripped the wheel and turned to face whatever this was. but there was nothing there. No semi, no lights, no sound. Just a long, empty stretch of Route 66 fading into blackness. His own tires marked the gravel. Nothing else. He turned in his seat, scanning the sides of the road. Flat fields stretched to the horizon. No trees, no buildings, no exits. A chill crept up his spine. How could a vehicle that size just vanish? He put the truck in gear and crept forward. 2 miles later, blue and red lights flashed up ahead. A local cruiser parked sideways across the road, and a tall, lean deputy waved him down with a flashlight. Cal rolled the window halfway. "Sir," the deputy said, "we got your call. You okay?" "No, I'm not okay," Cal snapped. "That thing's been on me for 3 nights now. I'm telling you it ain't normal." The deputy motioned toward the shoulder. "Pull over. Let's talk." Cal parked and stepped down from the cab. He noticed something odd right away. The deputy kept glancing past him down the road behind. "You see it?" Cal asked. "Seen it," the deputy replied, voice flat. "We pulled the dash cam feed from one of our units last night. Faint image of a black truck. No tag, no lights, no driver. So I'm not losing it." "No, but that doesn't mean we know what it is either." They stood in silence, the night around them pressing close. "You know about the Halvorsen case?" the deputy asked quietly. Cal shook his head. 20 years back, truck hightailed through a state trooper barricade near this same stretch. Wouldn't stop. Cops chased it all the way down to exit 202. Driver flipped the rig and burned alive inside. Cal's throat went dry. Black semi, exactly like the one you described. Local news called it the Phantom Freight. I thought that was just a story, one of those trucker campfire tales. The deputy shook his head. "My dad was first on scene. Said they found a manifest in the cab. No cargo listed, no company name, just a single note stapled to the wall. Not all freight is meant to be delivered." Cal swallowed hard. "Thing is," the deputy continued, "we've had 3 reports just this month, all from drivers who admitted, after a lot of pressing, they'd done something they were ashamed of. One guy confessed to insurance fraud. Another said he cheated on his partner, left town without saying a word. Each of them saw the truck. Each of them thought it was after them. The air felt heavier now, the desert darker. What about the third guy?" Cal asked. "Didn't make it. Wrecked his rig outside Flagstaff. Witnesses said he swerved to avoid a black truck that never showed up on dash cams. But here's the weird part." The deputy paused. "We pulled camera footage from a gas station 5 minutes before the crash. He was in the lot, talking to himself, over and over, saying, 'I'm sorry. I didn't know it would happen. I didn't mean to leave them behind.'" A shiver ran down Cal's arms. "You think this is some kind of ghost?" "I think something's out there," the deputy said, voice low, "and it knows who it wants." The cruiser's radio crackled. A woman's voice came through. "Unit 12, we got a ping. Same route. Another driver claims he saw the truck. Same description. No lights, no plate." The deputy cursed under his breath. "That's 2 sightings tonight." He turned back to Cal. "You staying on this route?" "Not anymore," Cal muttered. "I'm pulling off in Elk City. Tomorrow I'm taking a long way around." The deputy nodded. "Smart man. Some roads ain't worth finishing." He turned and got back into the cruiser, tires crunching gravel as he pulled away into the dark. Cal climbed back into his cab, heart pounding. He pulled onto the highway, eyes on every mirror, every flicker in the dark. For the rest of the night, the road stayed empty, but the silence never left. Because deep down, Cal knew, you don't see that truck unless you've got something to confess. And one way or another, it always finds you. Cal checked into a worn-out roadside motel in Elk City with trembling hands and a dry throat. The girl behind the front desk barely looked up as she handed him the key. Room 12, bottom floor. No questions, just how he liked it. But that night, sleep didn't come. The air in the room felt stale, like someone else had been there before him and never quite left. The air conditioning hummed, but sweat clung to Cal's back. He lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above him, and kept one eye on the window. Every time the headlights of a passing car cut through the curtains, his heart jumped. The truck hadn't followed him off the highway. Not tonight, but it would. He could feel it. He rolled onto his side and stared at the scar on his arm. A long, jagged line that ran from elbow to wrist, the reminder of something he hadn't spoken of in years. He told people it came from a chainsaw accident. In reality, it came from a man's belt buckle during a fight Cal never should have walked away from. Back then, he'd been young and angry, had a temper like napalm, and hands that did damage before his brain caught up. It only happened once, but once was enough. The guy lived, eventually, but he never forgave Cal for what he did. Neither did Cal, and somehow, in the back of his mind, he wondered, was that why the truck was following him? Was it punishment? Was it justice? The clock on the wall clicked to 3:33 a.m. Cal sat up, throat bone dry, and then the room phone rang. Not his cell, the room phone. He hadn't even noticed it before. An old beige thing bolted to the wall near the TV, yellowed with age. It rang once, then again. He hesitated, heart pounding, then reached out and picked up the receiver. At first, nothing, then a low sound, like breathing. No words, just slow, deliberate breathing. He slammed it back on the cradle and stood up fast. The phone rang again. This time he didn't answer. Instead, he pulled the curtains back and peered into the parking lot. And there it was, black, huge, parked behind his rig, the Phantom semi. No lights, no engine, just there, quiet, massive, and wrong. He backed away from the window, grabbed his bag, threw on his boots, and didn't even check out at the front desk. By 3:41 a.m., Cal was back on the road, speeding west like hell itself was on his bumper. Because maybe it was. He drove until dawn. Didn't stop, didn't breathe, didn't blink unless he had to. The farther west he went, the heavier the air became, like he was pushing into something thick and old. By 10 a.m., he reached the New Mexico border. He stopped at a gas station in Tucumcari, washed his face in the sink, and stared at his reflection. His eyes looked different now, like someone else had moved in. He went back to the truck, unlocked the glove compartment, and pulled out an envelope. Inside were 4 pictures. A woman, a boy, a dog, and him, Cal, standing in a backyard in Missouri that didn't belong to him anymore. He ran his thumb over the boy's face. Jeremy, 10 years old now, maybe 11. He hadn't seen him in 5. The court said stay away. She'd begged him not to fight it. Said Jeremy deserved better than a father with blood on his knuckles. He told himself he was doing the right thing by disappearing. But he never stopped thinking about that kid. Never stopped carrying those pictures. And maybe that was the real reason the truck had come. Maybe this wasn't about one fight or one mistake. Maybe it was about every damn thing he'd ever walked away from. His phone buzzed. Blocked number. He answered. Cal Weston, a voice said, "Male, cold, mechanical. You still think you're alone out here?" The line went dead. He looked up, and a black semi was parked across the street. No sound, no driver, just waiting. He dropped the phone and peeled out of the lot. No more pretending, no more running. He was being hunted, and something told him this thing wouldn't stop until he faced what he'd done. That night, he pulled off Route 66 and took a back road that curved into a canyon pass. The stars above were sharp and clear. The kind of sky that made you feel like the only person alive. He stopped the truck on a narrow overlook, stepped down, and lit a cigarette with shaky fingers. The silence was deafening. He waited, and it came. Headlights first. Twin beams of darkness that didn't glow, but devoured the light around them. Then the engine, or something like it. A rumble too deep for human mechanics, like the growl of the earth cracking open. The semi crested the hill and rolled to a stop just 30 feet from him. Cal stood his ground, smoke curling from his lips. The cab door creaked open on its own, empty inside, but not silent. A voice drifted out from the dark interior. Low, familiar. Get in. He stared into the cab, saw only shadow, but he recognized that voice. It was his own, older, worn, full of regret. He took a step back. I'm not going in there. The voice responded instantly. Then it's going to follow you forever. You think you can outrun the weight? You think you can bury what you did? You left a kid behind. A boy who asked every day why his dad disappeared. Cal's throat tightened. You don't get to use his voice. I'm not using it. You are. I'm just you. Every lie, every failure, every promise you didn't keep. I've been riding with you since the day you ran. The cab door opened wider. A cold wind spilled out. You want to end? The voice asked. Then get in. Cal stood frozen, then took a step forward. Then another. The smell hit him before he reached the steps. Burned rubber, oil, ash, and something worse. Loss. Real loss. He climbed the steps and sat in the driver's seat. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed the world, and the truck began to move, but not forward, down, into something deep and endless, into the part of himself he'd never faced. He woke up in his cab at dawn, sweating. His truck was parked on a dirt shoulder off a road he didn't recognize. The black semi was gone. No tracks. No sign it had ever been there. But his phone was in his lap, and a single voicemail blinked on the screen from his ex-wife. First message in 5 years. He hit play. Cal, I don't know why I'm calling, but Jeremy asked about you yesterday. Said he had a dream. Said you were in a big black truck, lost in the dark, trying to come home. She paused. I thought you should know. Click. He stared at the phone until the sun came up. Then he started the engine, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was running anymore. 2 days passed. Cal Weston kept the wheels moving. Each mile stretched longer than the last. Each road sign blurred into the next. It felt less like driving and more like slipping through time. He hadn't seen the phantom truck again since that night on the canyon overlook, but its presence lingered, in shadows across the dash, in flickers on the rearview mirror, in the way the CB radio would hiss static at 3:33 a.m. sharp, even if he'd turned it off. Whatever it wasn't done with him. Not yet. And deep down he knew why. It was never about just him. The deeper he dug into his past, the more he realized he wasn't the first to be chased, and he wouldn't be the last. So he drove back toward Route 66, back to the one place no sane man returned to, mile marker 207, that stretch of cracked pavement where all the story started, where the black semi was last alive. It was night when he reached it. The air felt electric. The wind died. Crickets went silent. Mile marker 207 stood alone in the desert, rusted and bent at the top like it had been struck by something too large to be man-made. Cal pulled off the road and killed the engine. Silence. Moonlight painted the highway silver. He stepped out of the cab and walked toward the marker. The dirt crunched beneath his boots like dry bones. He knelt, brushed dust away, and there it was, half buried in the sand, a melted license plate. The numbers had almost vanished, but he recognized them. He'd memorized them. They matched the rig from that wreck 20 years ago. The one they said exploded in a police chase. The one that burned so hot, only metal was left. The truck that had never been recovered because it had never stayed dead. And Cal had seen it happen. Not on TV, not in some report. In person, he'd been on that road. He'd been behind the wheel of a different truck, long before he wore a badge or cleaned up his act. He wasn't a cop back then. He was a decoy, a job gone sideways. Drugs in his trailer he didn't even know about. Paid to haul, paid to drive. And when the police gave chase, the black rig took the lead. Faster, louder, built for punishment. They were supposed to split after the border, but the cops were smarter. The black rig took the heat, took the bullets, took the fire. And Cal disappeared, changed his name, got clean, never told a soul, until now, because now the rig wanted him to remember. A low hum rose on the horizon. Cal stood slowly, heart pounding. The road ahead shimmered with heat, but it wasn't heat. It was headlights, twin black orbs that didn't shine. They swallowed the moonlight. The phantom freight rolled into view. Same truck, same scorch marks, same crack in the windshield. It came to a full stop 10 feet from him and idled, engine growling like a chained beast. The cab door opened, and for the first time ever, something stepped out. It wasn't a man. Not really. It wore the shape of one, tall, lean, draped in a charred duster coat, face hidden beneath a trucker's cap, skin smeared with ash. Its eyes were twin coals that burned with memory. It stood in silence, watching Cal. Then it spoke in Cal's voice. "You left us." Cal said nothing. "You made it out. The rest of us burned." Still, Cal didn't move. "Say it," the figure demanded. "I remember," Cal whispered. "Say what you did." "I ran." The figure nodded once, then slowly pointed to the ground between them. "You can't fix what you fled, but you can face it." Cal looked down. In the dirt lay something long and heavy. A crowbar, burned black, twisted, and next to it, a sheriff's badge half melted. Cal reached for the badge and picked it up. The metal scorched his skin, but he didn't let go. He stood, and when he looked up, the figure was gone. So was the truck. The wind returned. The crickets started chirping again. The badge in his hand was cold now, lifeless, but something in his chest felt different, like a weight had shifted, like the road ahead might finally lead somewhere other than regret. He turned the rig around, started back toward civilization. Somewhere, Jeremy was waiting. Somewhere, his past was buried under 20 years of silence. But tonight, he'd make a call. He'd speak the words he never dared say, even if the voice on the other end hung up, even if the phantom came back. Because now he understood something vital. The truck didn't come to punish. It came to remind of what happens when we forget the wreckage we leave behind. When we pretend we're clean just because we've driven far enough. Every mile holds a memory. Every highway has a haunting. And some rigs never stop rolling. Later, in a diner on the edge of Amarillo, Cal sat with coffee gone cold and stared at his phone. He pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then, "Hello," a young boy's voice. Cal froze, then said, "Jeremy?" Silence. Then, "Yeah, who is this?" His throat caught. It's your dad." More silence. A long one. Then a breath. "Mom said you might call." Cal blinked back tears. "I've got a lot to explain." Jeremy's voice was quiet, cautious. "Okay." Cal looked out the diner window. Just past a neon sign, a black semi rolled by. No driver. No lights. Just passing through. It didn't stop. Didn't linger. It was gone before the coffee cooled again. And for the first time in decades, Cal Weston didn't look back. Story 3. It started with a crackle, a faint hiss on the radio, just enough to make Rookie Officer Mason Teller lean toward the patrol unit's console and squint at the display. 2:03 a.m. Highway 31E. Somewhere between two towns too small to show up on GPS. He was on the midnight to dawn shift. His third week since graduating from the academy. Alone in the cruiser. Keeping to the speed limit. Keeping to himself. Then came the voice. Unit 14, this is 509. Requesting backup. Mason froze. The radio wasn't set to local channels. It was scanning open frequencies, something he occasionally did to break the monotony. He leaned in closer. Repeat. This is Unit 509 requesting backup. Officer down. Repeat. Officer down. The voice was male. Southern. Calm but ragged, like someone holding pain in their throat. Mason reached the mic. Unit 509, this is Officer Teller, Unit 14. What's your 20? A beat of silence. Then, near the old state road, east of Dunwich Hollow, past the split. Dunwich Hollow. He hadn't heard that name since orientation. A supervisor mentioned it once. Somewhere deep in the woods of Rutherford County. Not on any active patrol routes anymore. Roads have been rerouted, supposedly due to flooding or erosion. Nothing official, just vague warnings. Don't head past the hollow, one sergeant had muttered. That's dead land. Mason waited for a follow-up from 509. Nothing, just dead air. He flipped through the logbook beside the center console. Scanned patrol unit designations. 509 wasn't listed. He flipped back, checked an older archive tucked into the rear sleeve. There it was. Unit 509, Officer Grant Maddox. Badge number 1684. Assigned rural routes in Rutherford County. Year, 1984. Mason blinked. 40 years ago, according to the footnote. Maddox had disappeared during patrol. His cruiser never recovered. Presumed dead. Case closed. Mason sat in silence. A chill moved across his neck. He could have ignored it. Could have called it a radio hiccup or some weird prank frequency bouncing off the hills. But the voice had been clear. And more than that, familiar, like someone you'd almost met once in a dream. He pulled a U-turn on the empty road and headed back toward Dunwich Hollow. It didn't take long to find the split. The road thinned, then split into two cracked veins. The left fork led back toward familiar highways. The right disappeared into the trees. No lights, no signage, just a warped wooden post eaten by moss. Mason took the right. The cruiser bounced over ruts and potholes as thick as sinkholes. Tree limbs arched overhead, turning the narrow path into a tunnel of black branches. He slowed to a crawl, then stopped. The forest felt still, like it was holding its breath. And then he saw it, a shape just ahead, buried in underbrush, half covered in vines, coated in rust, but unmistakable. A patrol car, the old style frame, light bar shattered, door creaked open slightly. Mason stepped out his cruiser, flashlight in hand. The air smelled of mildew and old oil. He approached slowly. No animals, no wind, just the creak of his boots on dirt. He swept a beam of light across the hood. Unit 509. The number was still faintly visible under grime and rot. He moved to the side window. It was shattered inward, the glass long gone. But what made his heart stop was the breath mark on the inside of the glass. Fresh. He leaned closer. Inside, the seats were torn but intact. A worn notebook lay on the passenger seat. The engine was silent, but the dash lights, still flickering. He reached for the handle and pulled the door open. It moaned on its hinges like something waking up. The air inside was warm, like the engine had been running minutes ago, like someone had just stepped out. He backed away. Then the radio in his cruiser hissed again, crackling, and then, "Thank you for coming, Teller. Some of us never get found." He froze. The voice was right beside him now, not from the radio, from the woods. He spun with his flashlight. Nothing. just trees and blackness. He turned to run back to his cruiser and stopped cold. There was someone sitting in the driver's seat of Unit 509. A man wearing an old uniform, head down, hands on the wheel. Mason raised a flashlight, but the beam flickered and died. The man looked up, no face, just ash, and then everything vanished. The car, the forest, even the road beneath him. He woke up in his cruiser, the morning sun bleeding through the windshield. His watch read 6:47 a.m. Everything seemed normal. The radio was silent. The notebook he'd seen in the old patrol car, now resting on his lap. He stared at it for a full minute before opening the cover. Only one page had writing. It read, "Next appearance, March 12, 2034. Unit 509 will return. The voice will call. Do not answer." Below that, a fingerprint burned into the page. His own, even though he hadn't touched it yet. He closed the book, locked in the glove box, and started the engine. It turned over on the first try, but as he pulled away, his rear-view mirror trembled, and for a split second he saw a patrol car following him. No headlights, just shadows. Unit 509. And then it was gone. The following days blurred together for Mason. His patrols became mechanical, routine. He couldn't stop thinking about the night in Dunwich Hollow, about the mysterious officer and the ghostly patrol car that had seemed to follow him. That morning, after he left the wrecked cruiser in the woods and returned to the station, he had told his superior, Captain Dale, about the encounter. But Dale's reaction had been dismissive. Too dismissive. "You've been working long hours, Teller," Dale had said, rubbing his tired eyes. "The academy doesn't prepare you for these rural shifts. The isolation plays tricks on the mind. You're just seeing things, son. That's all." But Mason knew what he'd seen. The voice on the radio, the car that vanished, and the fingerprint in the notebook, his own fingerprint. Something was happening, something wrong. As the days passed, Mason found himself questioning his sanity. Could he have imagined it? Was it just stress from being a rookie officer in a town that barely had enough crime to justify its police department? His mind wandered back to the case files he'd found in the station. Officer Grant Maddox, gone without a trace. Patrol Unit 509, never found. But there was something deeper in Mason's gut, an unsettling sense that he hadn't simply imagined the event. No, something was drawing him back to that road, that cursed highway. A week later, Mason returned to Dunwich Hollow. The weather had changed. Heavy clouds hung low in the sky, casting everything in a muted gray light. The trees loomed over the road like blackened sentinels, blocking out any warmth from the sun. His cruiser hummed as he drove past the split, the one leading toward the hollow. The air felt thicker here, oppressive. This time, he wasn't just following some voice on a radio. He had to know. He was determined. Mason drove slowly, scanning the trees along the sides of the road. There was a familiar sense of dread hanging in the air, like something was watching him. His headlights cut through the mist that hung in the trees, and he felt that strange stillness settling in his chest again. But he pressed on, deeper into the forest, deeper into the mystery. When he reached the spot, the exact location where Unit 509 had been abandoned, he slowed to a stop. No other cars, no signs of life. The silence was deafening. He exited the cruiser, flashlight in hand, and approached the area where the patrol car had been. His heart pounded, the thudding in his chest louder than the rustling of the leaves beneath his boots. The old patrol car was still there, but now something had changed. The rust was more pronounced, as if the car had aged another 10 years in just 1 week. The vines had crept further over the hood, and the side mirror that had once been shattered was now completely gone, as if it had been taken. He circled the car, inspecting the damaged tires, the broken lights, the empty interior. There was a strange smell in the air, the scent of burnt rubber, and gasoline mixed with something more rancid. Suddenly, Mason's flashlight flickered. A chill rushed over him. The air grew colder, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in an instant. He could hear something faint, something almost imperceptible, a whispering. He turned, eyes scanning the shadows between the trees. But there was nothing there, just the whisper. He spun around to face the cruiser again, and for a split second, just long enough to make his breath catch, he thought he saw a figure in the driver's seat. A man sitting still. The uniform was old-fashioned, and the face was pale, too pale, as if the man hadn't seen sunlight in years. His eyes glinted in the dim light like hollow sockets. But Mason didn't have time to react. The moment he blinked, the figure was gone. He rushed to the car door, yanked it open, and found it empty. Mason's head spun. He felt dizzy. There was something horribly wrong here, something that went beyond any rational explanation. He ran back to his cruiser, his hands shaking as he fumbled for his keys. The radio crackled to life. Unit 14, this is 509. We've been waiting. You can't leave. Mason froze, his fingers hovering over the ignition. There was a low, almost imperceptible laughter from the speaker. Unit 14, the clock is ticking. Don't let the hollow take you. Don't let the road pull you in. And then, before Mason could even respond, the transmission cut out, the radio going silent once more. A cold sweat formed on the back of his neck as the cruiser's engine roared to life. But as he drove away, Mason's eyes darted to the rear view mirror. The same patrol car, Unit 509. Its headlights were off, and it was trailing behind him. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He pushed the pedal to the metal, speeding down the road, praying that when he looked back again, it would be gone. But every time he glanced into the rear view mirror, the car was still there, and it wasn't slowing down. Mason didn't stop driving until he reached the outskirts of town, his mind racing with thoughts of what he'd just experienced. But as the familiar streets of Rutherford County came into view, he finally allowed himself to breathe again, to let go of the tight knot in his chest. But when he glanced at his dashboard clock, it stopped him cold. It read 2:13 a.m. It had been 2:13 a.m. when he'd left the station. He had driven for over an hour, but somehow the time hadn't changed. The reality of what was happening crashed into him. The voice on the radio, the patrol car following him, the strange sensation of being trapped in a loop of some kind. And then the radio crackled again. Next time, officer teller. Next time you'll stay. The words sent a cold shiver down his spine, but as soon as it came, they were gone. The static returned. Mason slammed his hand on the radio. What the hell was going on? He looked up at the road ahead. Clear, no sign of Unit 509 anymore. But in the reflection of his rear view mirror, he could have sworn he saw a face staring back at him. He turned and blinked. Nothing. The mirror was empty. The road was clear. But his instincts told him that wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. And as Mason drove, he could feel it. The pull, the magnetic tug of something unseen, something waiting for him. He'd crossed a line now, and there was no going back. The hollow hadn't let go of him, and neither had the road. Mason couldn't sleep that night. The encounter in Dunwich Hollow gnawed at him like an itch he couldn't scratch. It wasn't just a phantom patrol car tailing him. No, it was the voice on the radio. It haunted him, looping over and over in his mind, filling the silence of his small apartment with a creeping dread. Next time, officer teller, he tossed and turned, eyes wide open in the darkness, staring at the ceiling as the clock ticked toward 3 a.m. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hollow wasn't done with him, that somehow it was pulling him back into its twisted grip. His phone buzzed on a nightstand. The sudden noise made him jump, and for a moment, he forgot where he was. It was a text from Captain Dale. Mason, get to the station. Urgent. This isn't over. We need to talk. Mason didn't hesitate. He grabbed his uniform, pulled on his boots, and without a second thought, rushed out the door. The station was only a few miles away, but the eerie stillness of the empty streets made the drive feel endless. Every streetlight he passed seemed to flicker, casting long, distorted shadows. When he arrived, Dale was waiting for him in the parking lot. The captain looked unusually grim, his face pale under the harsh overhead lights. He didn't speak as Mason approached. He simply motioned for him to follow. Mason's heart began to race as he followed the captain inside. The weight of what he had experienced felt heavier now, like an invisible hand pressing down on his chest. Inside, the dim glow of the station's fluorescent lights cast long shadows on the walls. Dale led him to the back office, where a file was open on the desk. The officer's name on the file was familiar, Officer Grant Maddox. "Sit," Dale instructed, his voice low and strained. Mason did as told, sitting across from the captain, his mind still racing with questions. Dale leaned over the file, pulling out a few photographs and placing them in front of Mason. Mason picked them up. There was a photo of Officer Maddox, a young, handsome man in his late 20s, standing proudly next to his patrol car. But something was off about the photo. The background was blurry, and the entire image had an unnatural quality to it, as if the picture had been taken in a moment suspended in time. "That's Maddox," Dale said. "Unit 509. He went missing back in 1984. Vanished from the face of the earth. No one's seen him since, but..." He trailed off, his hands shaking as he flipped through the pages of the file. The car was found, just like you saw it. The very same patrol car, buried in vines. But no sign of Maddox. No body. It's like he just disappeared. Mason swallowed hard, trying to piece the information together. His mind raced back to the radio call, the strange voice that sounded so real. He could hear it again, as clear as day in his mind. "The voice you heard, it wasn't just some transmission glitch," Dale continued. "That was Officer Maddox. The call came from him. And just like you, he was pulled in by the hollow, trapped in some kind of loop." Mason blinked, tried to comprehend what Dale was telling him. His breath came in shallow gasps. "What do you mean, a loop?" Dale leaned in closer, his eyes wide with something bordering on fear. "Every 10 years, Mason. Every 10 years, the car appears. The officer vanishes, and another officer is called to find the car, but it's always the same car. And that officer, they're never seen again. Not alive." Mason's stomach dropped. Dale grabbed the file again, flipping to a new page. This one had a set of old, faded photographs showing the patrol car in various states of disrepair, each taken exactly 10 years apart. The first, from 1984, showed the car still pristine, parked on a lonely stretch of road. The next photo was from 1994, the car half buried in vines. The last, taken in 2004, showed the car rusted, the windows shattered, the license plate almost unreadable. And there, standing beside the wrecked vehicle in each photo, was an officer, each one different, but each of them eerily familiar. "The thing is," Dale said quietly, "it's not just a car, it's not just Maddox. It's the road, Dunwich Hollow, the place where it all happens." Mason felt his skin go cold, his breath hitched in his chest. "What do you mean, the road?" "The road's the key. That place, it's something else. The area has been the site of countless disappearances over the years, many of them unsolved. But the thing that links them all is the Hollow, a place stuck between time and space. And once it chooses you, you're trapped." Mason's mind reeled as he tried to make sense of what he was hearing. The chilling words from the radio replayed in his head. "Next time, Officer Teller, next time you'll stay." "Why me?" Mason asked hoarsely, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Why did it come after me? What's the connection?" Dale took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for something. You have the same name as Officer Maddox's brother, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The same first and last name. Your badge number? It's the same as his was. That's why it found you, Mason. It's not a coincidence. It was always going to be you. Mason's blood ran cold. What do I do now? Dale stood up, moving toward the window. You can't leave it, Mason. The hollow won't let you. The only way to escape is to face it. Face the road. Face the car. Mason stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the captain's words pressing down on him. There's no escape? Mason's voice cracked. No! Dale replied, his voice solemn. The hollow doesn't let go. It calls to you, and it doesn't stop until it has you. The door to the office opened suddenly, and Officer Lee entered. He looked shocked as he glanced between the two men. Mason. Lee said, his face pale. There's been a 911 call. Another patrol unit, just like Maddox's. They've gone missing. Mason's heart dropped as he met Lee's gaze. The cycle had begun again. The last thing Mason saw was the streetlights as he passed them on his way out of the station. Each light flickered, casting eerie shadows across the empty road. He wasn't sure if he was ready. He wasn't sure if he could do it. But one thing was certain. He would have to face the hollow. He couldn't run anymore. And the road had already claimed him. Story 4. The desert had a strange way of keeping secrets. It was nearing midnight when Deputy Joel Carter's radio crackled to life. The night shift in Humboldt County, Nevada, was usually quiet, miles of barren highways and the occasional drunk stumbling out of Winnemucca. But this call was different. The dispatcher's voice came through the static, trembling just enough to raise the hairs on Joel's neck. Unit 3-9, we've got a 911 from a traveler claiming he's stuck near an old gas station. Says it's somewhere along Route 34. Says he's not alone. Joel sat up straighter in his cruiser, wiping the sleep from his eyes. Copy that. Did he give coordinates? Negative. GPS cut out mid-call. He said he sees someone watching him from the pumps. Then it went dead. Joel grabbed his thermos, took a long sip of cold coffee, and clicked the mic. 10-4, I'm en route. He glanced at his partner, Officer Rick Mendez, who'd been half dozing in the passenger seat. You catch that? Rick blinked slowly. Did she say someone's watching him from a gas station? On 34? There ain't no gas station out that way. Not for 40 miles. Exactly, Joe muttered. They pulled out of the rest stop and headed north, tires humming against the cracked asphalt. The night stretched on like a painting that had run out of color. Just dust, stars, and endless shadows. As they drove, the desert air grew colder, heavier. Joel noticed his GPS flickering before freezing entirely. The screen displayed only a pulsing blue. No roads, no towns, just blankness. Rick tapped the screen, frowning. Mine's dead too, he said. Joel shrugged. Figures. This whole stretch is a black hole. I swear, every time we get near the canyons, the tech dies. They continued for another 15 minutes before Rick sat up, squinting into the darkness. There, look. Joel slowed the cruiser. Up ahead, on the left side of the road, a flickering neon sign glowed faintly against the black sky. It read, Gas and Goods, open late. It looked ancient. The letters buzzed and blinked like they were running on borrowed power. Below the sign sat a single-story gas station with 2 rusted pumps and a boarded-up convenience store. A red pickup truck was parked by one of the pumps, engine still running, doors open. I'll be damned, Joel said. I thought you said there wasn't anything out here. There wasn't, Rick replied. Not for the last 30 years. They pulled in slowly, headlights casting long, stretched shadows across the cracked pavement. Joel's hand hovered near his holster as he stepped out. Sheriff's Department, he called. Anybody here? The desert answered with silence. They approached the red pickup first. Joel peeked inside. The keys were in the ignition, engine rumbling low. But there was no sign of the driver, just a map, laid out across the passenger seat. Joel picked it up carefully. The map was old, worn thin at the creases. It showed a highway that didn't exist anymore, Route 9, which had been replaced by modern interstates decades ago. A red circle was drawn over the gas station, labeled in shaky handwriting. Don't trust him. Rick pointed toward the convenience store. Doors open. Inside, the station looked like something out of time. Dust blanketed everything. Candy racks, a row of rotting fridges, faded postcard with curled edges. An old cash register sat on the counter like a fossil. But what struck Joel was the smell. Not the expected scent of decay or stale oil, but flowers. Sweet, cloying, almost like lilies. Hello? Joel called again. A man stepped out from behind the counter. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, dressed in a spotless white attendant's uniform with a name tag that read Lester. His eyes were an unnatural shade of blue, almost glowing in the low light. You boys lost? He asked, voice smooth like a radio DJ from another era. Joel kept his hand near his holster. We're responding to a call. A man claimed he was being watched out here. You see him? Lester smiled, but the corners of his mouth never quite reached his eyes. Plenty of travelers stop here. Sometimes they see things. The road plays tricks on tired minds. Rick stepped forward. You're telling us no one's been here tonight? Didn't say that, Lester replied. Said plenty come through. Some leave, others don't. Joel's skin crawled. We need to know where that man went, he said. Lester's smile faded. If he's smart, he'll keep driving. If he's not, well, the road has a way of keeping folks. What do you mean? Rick asked. Lester glanced out the window at the darkness beyond. You ever hear of Road 34 syndrome? No, Joel said, eyes narrowing. Lester leaned forward. It's a local myth. They say there's a stretch of highway out here that doesn't let you go. Once you pass a station, your GPS dies, your sense of time warps, and you start seeing people you've lost. But they're not who you think they are. The road uses them, lures you deeper. Rick scoffed. You expect us to believe that? Lester's gaze darkened. I don't expect anything, officer. I'm just a messenger. Joel turned to leave, gripping the map tighter. I think we've heard enough. But before he could step outside, Lester added one final warning. Don't stop for anyone after you leave here. No matter who they look like. Don't listen. Don't follow. Joel hesitated, then stepped out into the cold desert night. Rick followed, glancing over his shoulder. The gas station lights flickered behind them. They got back into the cruiser and began driving. 10 minutes down the road, Joel's pulse started to race. The GPS screen was still frozen. Rick's phone had no bars. The desert was deathly silent. Then Joel saw her, standing by the side of the road. A woman, maybe in her early 60s. Pale blue dress, short gray hair. Joel slammed the brakes. His hands began to tremble. Joel, Rick asked. That's my mother, Joel whispered. She died 4 years ago. The woman raised a hand and smiled gently. Joel, she mouthed, though there was no sound. Rick grabbed his arm. She's not real. Remember what Lester said. Joel's heart pounded in his chest. But the smile, it was exactly how he remembered her. The soft warmth, the kind eyes. She mouthed again, please help me. Joel opened the door. Joel, no! Rick shouted, but it was too late. As Joel stepped out, the desert air shifted. The wind howled. The ground beneath him felt like it buckled. And when he looked back toward the road, the cruiser was gone. So was Rick. So was everything. He was alone, standing on cracked pavement beneath a sky that no longer held stars. And his mother was gone too. Only the sound of distant humming remained, the buzz of an old neon sign far behind him, growing fainter and fainter. The silence was suffocating. Deputy Joel Carter stood frozen on the cracked highway, the wind whipping around him like whispers of something not quite alive. The cruiser, Rick, the blinking dash, the static on the radio, it had all vanished as if erased from reality in one long blink. And the woman, the illusion of his mother, she was nowhere to be seen. He turned in a slow circle. There was nothing, just empty road in both directions, swallowed by moonless desert. No lights, no hum of distant traffic, no sound of life. He fumbled for his flashlight, clicked it on. The beam was weak, barely slicing the thick shadows around him. He tried his radio. Unit 3-9, Carter to dispatch. Come in. Static. He repeated it louder, more desperate. Still nothing. Joel's breathing quickened. The stillness of the desert was unnatural, not peaceful but oppressive, like the land itself was waiting for something. He checked his phone. Black screen, no signal. His watch had stopped ticking. 12:04 a.m. Frozen like everything else. Then, in the far-off distance, he saw it again, the neon flicker, the gas station. He'd driven 10 miles past it. He was sure of it, but now it stood ahead of him again, like he'd never left. Same dim sign, same red pickup still idling beside a rusted pump. It was impossible. He started walking, boots crunching on gravel, with every step. A knot of dread coiled tighter in his gut. As he approached, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. The station now had a second car, a rusted Crown Victoria police cruiser, half covered in desert dust. Its passenger door hung open. Joel froze. That wasn't there before. He slowly stepped up the cruiser, heart pounding, and peered inside. A badge lay on the seat. He reached for it, lifting it carefully. Badge number 057, Officer David R. Ellis. Joel's stomach dropped. David Ellis was a deputy who'd vanished in 1991. Joel remembered the stories, how Ellis had responded to a stranded motorist call just like this one and never came back. His cruiser was never found. His body was never found. Until now. Joel staggered back, breathing hard. That was when he heard it, a voice just behind him. You found my ride. Joel spun around, hand on his weapon. The man standing there wore an old, sun-bleached uniform. Badge number 057 gleamed under the station's flickering light. He looked tired, pale. His eyes were sunken, rimmed with red. But there was no mistaking the resemblance to the man on the department's missing wall. Joel had passed it every day for years. Officer Ellis? Joel whispered. Ellis smiled, but it was the saddest smile Joel had ever seen. 34 years I've been out here, he said. I've walked that stretch of road more times than I can count. Never changes. Never ends. Joel took a cautious step back. What is this place? He asked. Ellis looked up at the neon sign. It's a threshold, a crack in the world. The station, the road, it's all caught between seconds, between heartbeats. You get stuck here if you stop, if you let it see your regrets. The woman, Joel began. She looked like my mother. Ellis nodded solemnly. They always do. It finds what hurts. It digs it up and holds in front of you until you either follow it or disappear. Joel swallowed hard. What happens if you follow? Ellis didn't answer. He just looked out into the darkness. Joel turned back toward the road. I need to find Rick. He was in the car. I have to get out of here. Ellis put a hand on his shoulder. It was ice cold. You might still have a chance, he said. You haven't walked the loop yet. What loop? But Ellis was already walking away, past the pumps toward the rear of the station. Joel followed, heart pounding. As they moved beyond the building, Joel saw something that made him stop cold. A pit, roughly dug into the desert dirt, surrounded by broken boards and old caution tape. Inside, buried halfway in the sand, were the outlines of more cars. Patrol cruisers, sedans, vans, some rusted to frame, some nearly untouched, and people, bodies in faded uniforms, drivers slumped over wheels, faces twisted in terror, each one frozen in time, untouched by decay. Some were reaching out, as if they'd been clawing their way out when time just paused. Joel felt bile rise in his throat. "How many?" he asked. Ellis turned, eyes hollow. "Dozens, maybe more. Every decade or so, it pulls in a few more. Officers, travelers, people running from something." "Why officers?" Ellis gave a ghost of a grin. "Because we answer the call. No matter what." Joel stepped back, overwhelmed. "I have to find Rick. He might still be alive." Ellis nodded. "Maybe, but if he saw someone, if he listened, I have to try," Joel said, already walking away. As he passed the pumps, the attendant, Lester, was standing there again, still smiling, still glowing slightly beneath the station's light. "You sure you want to leave?" Lester asked. Joel didn't slow down. "Get out of my way." Lester shrugged. "Don't say I didn't warn you." Joel headed down the road again. This time, the walk felt longer. The wind picked up, swirling sand across his path. The stars above were different now, shifted somehow, as if the sky itself had moved. And then, far ahead, he saw something. Headlights, flickering, parked at an angle. Joel ran. As he neared, he saw it was their cruiser, Unit 3 to 9. Rick was slumped over in the driver's seat, unconscious but breathing. "Rick!" Joel shouted, yanking open the door. Rick stirred. His eyes snapped open. He gasped like someone waking from a nightmare. "Joel," he whispered. She wouldn't stop talking to me." "Who?" Joel asked, helping him up. "My sister," Rick said. "She died in high school. She was standing in the road, just crying. I heard her voice in the cruiser. The radio, it started playing her favorite song." Joel helped him into the passenger seat. "We have to go. Now." He turned the ignition. The engine roared to life. Joel slammed it into gear and floored it down the road. As they sped past a neon sign, the gas station flickered, then blinked out entirely. Just gone, like it had never been there. Joel didn't stop. He drove for miles until the GPS screen came back to life, and the radio buzzed with static that turned into a dispatcher's voice. "Unit 3 to 9, do you copy? We lost you for a while there." Joel grabbed the mic. "We're okay. We're on Route 34, heading south. We have a situation to report. Something big." There was a long pause. Then, "Route 34? That road's been shut down for over 20 years. Joel blinked. "What?" "It's been closed off since '04. Washed out. Nobody patrols that stretch anymore." Joel looked at Rick. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The headlights cut through the barren desert as Unit 3 to 9 rolled back onto familiar roads. Only they didn't feel familiar anymore. Joel's grip was tight on the steering wheel. Rick sat in silence beside him, pale, shaking, still processing the images he couldn't explain. Their radios buzzed again, picking up the chatter from other units now within range. GPS returned. Signal bars flickered in. Civilization welcomed them like a blanket after a nightmare. But something still wasn't right. Neither man spoke as they reached the edge of the county line. Joel pulled into the station outside of town, the one where troopers usually met for early morning coffee. The lights were on. The hum of a vending machine buzzed softly inside. Everything seemed real, yet it all felt wrong. Joel parked and killed the engine. "You good?" Rick looked at him with hollow eyes. "I don't know what I saw. I don't even remember getting out of the car." Joel didn't answer. He stared at the steering wheel, his thoughts caught in a loop. The way his mother's eyes looked, the warmth of Officer Ellis's cold hand, the unspoken warning in Lester's smile. Time was different back there. Slower, hungrier, Joel stepped out into the cold air. It smelled of motor oil, gravel, and the desert wind. Normal smells. He tried to focus on them, to ground himself. They weren't far from the sheriff's office now. A simple ride, just 10 more minutes. But something stopped him from getting back in. Rick leaned out the window. "What are you doing?" Joel turned slowly. "I have to go back." Rick's face twisted in disbelief. "What?" "That gas station. The pit out back. There were others. Ellis said it calls people. And it doesn't stop until it takes someone. If we leave now, someone else will get pulled in. A rookie, another traveler, a family, maybe someone who won't know better." Rick climbed out too. "So what? We tell the feds? Park rangers? You think anyone's going to believe us? They'll slap us with psych evals and say we were heat struck." Joel stepped forward, eyes hard. "Then we don't tell them. We stop it ourselves." Rick stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "What are you even saying, man?" "I'm saying we go back. One last time. We burn it. We collapse that pit. We find a way to shut it down for good." Rick ran a hand through his hair. "You saw what I saw. That place, it isn't normal. It's like it feeds off us. Our memories. Our pain." Joel nodded, "Which is why it needs us. It wants us. We're already marked." They stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, Rick sighed and opened the passenger door. "You're out of your damn mind. But if you're going, I'm not letting you go alone." Joel nodded, eyes forward. "We leave now." They loaded what supplies they could. Flashlights, road flares, an old canister of gasoline from the service station. They filled their thermoses with coffee and left no report. No message, no warning, just silence. By the time they reached the old road again, the moon had dipped below the desert hills. The air had turned colder. The GPS flickered, then died. The radio went silent. It was back. The desert swallowed their cruiser like a breath held too long. The sign glowed faintly ahead. Lester's fill-up station. The L blinked in and out. As they pulled up, everything looked the same, except for the third vehicle, another cruiser. This one newer. It hadn't been there before. Rick noticed it first. "That's from our precinct." Joel stepped out and approached it. Its engine was still ticking. A bag of fast food sat in the passenger seat. Coffee still steaming. A police laptop with the screen frozen on a dispatch message. Code 17. Traveler down. Possible 10 to 33. Joel looked at the driver's seat. Empty. No officer in sight. Rick checked the badge number on the dash log. That's Jamie Ferris. Rookie. Transferred in a few months ago. Joel's mouth tightened. Then she's inside. They move fast. Guns drawn. Not because they thought it would help, but because training demanded it. The front door creaked open. Inside, Lester stood calmly behind the counter, wiping a coffee mug. "Welcome back, gentlemen," he said, voice soft and dry. "Where is she?" Joel barked. Lester just smiled. "She's seeing someone she lost. It's best not to interrupt." Joel stepped forward. "You pull someone in every time, don't you? Every 10 years, every storm, every lonely night." Lester's eyes glinted. "I don't pull anyone. People come on their own, looking for closure, or answers, or a chance to say goodbye." Rick's voice was trembling now. "This place is not even real." "Oh, it's real," Lester said. "More real than you'd like to admit. This stretch of road used to be alive, full of people in motion and breath. But time forgot it. Now it remembers only the echoes. That's what you are now, echoes." Joel lit a flare and held it high. "Then we'll burn the echo to the ground." Lester chuckled. "You can't destroy grief. You can only feed it." They found her in the back room, Jamie Ferris, standing perfectly still, staring into the freezer unit. Inside was her younger brother, pale and smiling, but he died 2 years ago in a drowning accident. "Jamie," Joel said softly. "That's not him. He's gone." She didn't turn. He asked me why I let go of the rope. Rick stepped beside her. "This place lies to us. Uses our guilt like a leash." Slowly, Jamie turned. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I thought if I just stayed a little longer." Joel stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "It won't stop, not until it takes you." They dragged her out gently but firmly. As they exited, Lester was gone. The entire station began to flicker, lights dimming, walls shifting, as if the gas station itself were breathing. Joel tossed the gasoline across the front room. Rick lit the flare. "Let's give this place something to remember." He tossed it into the puddle of fuel. The fire caught instantly. Within seconds, the entire building was engulfed in flame. The gas pumps exploded with a roar. The glow lit up the desert for miles. They didn't wait to watch it collapse. They drove fast. And this time, the road did not twist. The loop did not start over. The station did not reappear. By the time they saw the county lights again, they knew they'd broken it. Or at least paused it. Weeks passed. Joel filed a false report, just enough to cover their absence. Jamie was put on extended medical leave. She remembered very little, or chose not to. Rick transferred to another county. Couldn't take the night shifts anymore. Joel stayed. He drove past the old route every night. Nothing ever appeared again. No neon glow. No ghost station. But sometimes, when the wind was just right, he'd hear the whisper of a freezer door creaking open, or the long-dead crackle of a radio call. One night, he parked on the edge of the abandoned stretch and stepped out just to look. The sign wasn't there, but the shadow of it was, flickering faintly, waiting, just in case someone new came looking. Story 5. It started with a 911 call at 3:12 a.m. A faint voice, static, then the sound of a child crying, soft, distant, like it was coming from a far corner of a long hallway. Then a click. The dispatcher tried calling back, but the number didn't exist. That wasn't unusual for calls that came from older payphones, though most had been removed years ago. What made it strange was the location. Rest Stop 44. Officer Jared Minter had driven past that place 100 times during his shift rotations along Interstate 44. It had been officially decommissioned in 2001, 2 years after what locals still whispered about, the Sanderson family incident. A mother, father, and 2 children found dead in their station wagon. Doors locked. No blood. No struggle. No official cause of death. Just wide eyes, open mouths, and expressions of horror frozen in time. Tonight, Jared was alone in his patrol car, the hiss of the highway behind him as he stared through his windshield at the overgrown lot. The old welcome sign still hung, tilted and cracked, beneath a layer of dirt and ivy. The parking lot was empty, except for a single vehicle, a dark green sedan. Headlights off, engine still running. He reached for the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 19. I'm at the location of that 911 call. Rest Stop 44. There's a vehicle here, engines on, but I don't see anyone inside." Static crackled back, then silence. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Nothing. Jared frowned. Cell signal was weak out here, but the patrol radio usually held steady. He left the car and stepped out, flashlight in hand. The night was thick with a damp fog, and the air felt unusually cold for late September, the kind of cold that sinks into your teeth. As he walked toward the sedan, he noticed the car door slightly ajar. A low mechanical hum droned from the engine, but the interior was empty. No wallet, no phone, just a single child's shoe on the passenger seat, bright pink, glittering faintly in his light. He leaned closer, scanning the back seat. Empty. That's when he heard it. The crying. It came from the restroom building. Set back near the trees, an old concrete structure with faded men and women signs barely clinging to the doors. The crying was soft, timid, like a child who had been crying so long they didn't remember why. Jared's chest tightened. "Hello," he called. "This is Officer Minter with the state police. Are you all right?" The crying stopped. He waited, listening. Nothing but wind. He drew his sidearm, heart beginning to thud against his ribs, and walked slowly toward the building. The restrooms hadn't been in use for decades. The door to the women's side hung loosely on its hinge, swaying slightly as if nudged by unseen hands. He pushed it open. The smell hit him first, damp mold, rust, and something older, something sour and buried. Inside, the flashlight beam swept across shattered tiles, broken mirrors, and graffiti-stained walls. One stall door was shut. Beneath it, bare feet. Small. He approached carefully. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm here to help." He reached for the handle and slowly pushed it open. Nothing. No one. Just two wet footprints on the cracked floor and a faint handprint smeared across the inside of the metal door. It was small, child-sized, and it was made of something dark and sticky. He backed out, breathing hard now, his skin crawling, and then he heard the car door slam. He ran outside. The sedan was gone. Tire marks still smoked in the gravel. Jared's pulse hammered in his ears. He grabbed his radio again. "Dispatch! I need backup at rest stop 44 immediately. Possible abduction. Suspect vehicle has fled the scene." But the radio only hissed. Then came the voice. Faint, almost childlike, right behind him. "Why did you leave me?" He spun. Nobody. The lot was empty again. The air still. He returned to his cruiser, locked the doors, and sat for several long minutes, trying to steady his breathing. It was then he noticed something on his windshield. A handprint, pressed against the glass from the outside. Small, just like the one in the bathroom. And smeared across it in the condensation was a single word. "Stay." He didn't. He floored the gas and tore out of there without looking back. The next day, no report could be filed. Dispatch said they'd received no call, no recordings, no timestamps, no audio logs. Jared was reprimanded for leaving his jurisdiction and warned not to report false calls. He took the punishment silently. But that night, as he sat alone in his apartment, staring blankly at the television, a sound came from a hallway. Crying, faint, distant. He opened the door. No one was there, just a child's shoe, the same one from the car. It didn't stop. Calls kept coming in, always between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. Different officers now. Some said they never found anything. Others had worse luck. Officer Ramirez, 6 years on the job, responded to a report of a stalled vehicle at the same rest stop. When he arrived, he found a minivan, windows fogged over, doors open. Inside, it looked like someone had been living there. Food wrappers, baby toys, a small quilt. Then he heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter, echoing from inside the trees. He followed it. His body was found 2 days later in the woods. No visible wounds. Just wide eyes, frozen in terror. In his hand, he held a baby rattle. It wasn't his. The department quietly removed Rest Stop 44 from GPS databases. Maps showed nothing at that mile marker anymore, just empty space. But it was still there, and some nights, the lights would flicker back on, a vending machine hum, an engine idling, and the sound of someone crying for help over and over, but never quite close enough to reach. Officer Jared Minter tried to let it go. He transferred to a different precinct, changed his number, moved apartments, but the shoe kept showing up on his kitchen counter, in his mailbox, on the hood of his cruiser. He started recording everything. One night, he set up a camera in his hallway and left his door locked. At 3:17 a.m., the footage caught the sound of crying, then the front door unlocked. The chain unlatched, and the door swung open. Nothing came in, but the shoe was placed gently in the center of the rug, and the door closed. He couldn't take it anymore. He needed answers. That's how he found her. Bethany Sanderson, the only survivor of the Sanderson family murders in 1999. She'd been 5 at the time, sleeping in the back seat. When police found her, she was hiding inside one of the restroom stalls, curled in the fetal position. She hadn't spoken for 3 years after that. Now, she was 29, lived in a small care facility in Missouri. Jared got special permission to speak with her. She didn't talk much, but when he showed her the shoe, her eyes welled up. She whispered one word, "Charlotte, your sister?" Jared asked. Bethany nodded. "What happened that night?" She hesitated. Then she said she woke up first, said she saw a boy outside the window. She opened the door and went to him. Mommy and Daddy followed. I stayed in the car. I didn't move. Why not? Because he was smiling too big. His mouth was wrong. Jared swallowed. What happened after? Bethany shook her head. They didn't scream. They just stopped. They went quiet, like they weren't breathing, but their eyes were open, looking at me, but not seeing me. Jared asked her who he was. She only said, "He lives there now." Who? She looked him dead in the eyes. The crying boy, but he's not a boy anymore. Officer Jared Minter couldn't sleep after speaking with Bethany Sanderson. Her voice haunted him. Not just what she said, but the weight behind it. Like she'd been carrying something that didn't belong to her for decades. Something heavy. Something cursed. She didn't say goodbye when he left. She just returned to her room and shut the door softly, almost reverently, as if trying not to wake something behind it. He sat in his car for hours afterward, not starting the engine, watching the moon drift behind clouds and listening to his own breathing. That night, when he finally did go home, he found the lights in his apartment were on, every single one. The door was locked, the chain untouched. Inside, the air was cold, too cold, like stepping into a freezer. And on his kitchen counter sat not the child's shoe, but a pair, perfectly aligned, facing him. He picked one up and found something underneath it. A crumpled photo, black and white, faded. It showed Rest Stop 44 in pristine condition. Fresh paint, full parking lot, smiling families near the vending machines. A little girl stood in the corner, half in frame, wearing those exact shoes. She was pointing at something behind the camera. Written on the back of the photo was the date, July 2nd, 1974. Jared couldn't sleep that night either, or the next. He started combing through department archives, old dispatch logs, 911 call transcriptions, newspaper articles, and death records. Most of the Sanderson family reports were sealed or redacted, but older ones from the 1970s, those were untouched. It started in 1974. That was the earliest record of fatality at Rest Stop 44 that didn't involve traffic accidents or medical emergencies. A family from Iowa, mom, dad, and their 2 sons, were reported missing days later. Their car was found at Rest Stop 44, engine running, doors locked. Inside were suitcases, one partially open, as if someone had been interrupted mid-unpacking. No bodies. The incident report was thin. It didn't even list the names of the officers who first responded, but tucked in the corner of one page was a note scribbled in pen, "Crying heard in the trees." Officers reported seeing a boy near the restroom. Then he disappeared. That wasn't the only case. There were dozens more. Families, travelers, hikers, even a Greyhound bus that stopped there once due to engine trouble. The driver walked into the restroom and never came back out, but his voice came over the radio the next day, calling for help. He was never found, all from Rest Stop 44. And in every case, someone mentioned hearing crying. always a child. Jared pieced together a timeline. The disappearances happened in cycles, every 4 years, always clustered between the months of September and December, always between the hours of 3 o'clock and 4 a.m. He didn't know why, he didn't know how, but he knew the pattern, and this year it was due to happen again. He drove back to the rest stop on October 11th, 3:01 a.m. The wind was still. The trees hung in motionless silence. The lot looked the same. Cracked pavement, faded paint, broken street lamps. But the air was different. He parked his cruiser and waited. 3:10. Nothing. 3:15. Static erupted over his radio. Then the voice. Officer, officer, please, he's coming. The voice of a child. No older than 8. It was trembling, pleading. Then behind the static, a second voice. Whispering, breathing. Too deep for a child. Jared gripped the mic. This is Officer Minter. Where are you? Identify yourself. A giggle. Then the line went dead. He exited the cruiser. The fog rolled in fast, creeping over the treetops and pouring across the lot like smoke. Visibility dropped to only a few feet. His flashlight barely pierced it. He stepped cautiously toward the restrooms. And there it was again, crying. This time, he didn't enter the women's side. He followed the sound into the woods. The trees were twisted here, bent unnaturally, like something massive had pushed through them. As he moved deeper, he found pieces of things, scraps of clothing, crushed toys, torn photographs, all half buried in the leaves. He stepped into a small clearing. In the center sat a swing set, rusty, ancient, one swing still dangling from a single chain. A boy was sitting on it, facing away from Jared, wearing a torn white t-shirt and shorts. His head was down. Jared raised his light. Are you all right? The boy didn't move. Jared took a step forward. Do you need help? The swing began to move, back and forth. Creak, creak, creak. Then the boy raised his head and turned. His eyes were empty, black holes that swallowed the light. His mouth split open into an inhuman grin, too wide, stretching past his cheeks. And he spoke. You left me. Jared stumbled backward. The boy rose from the swing. The trees behind him moved, not in the wind, but as if they were alive, shifting and bending toward the boy like puppets pulled by invisible strings. You all leave, but I stay. I remember. Jared turned and ran. Branches scratched at him. Roots tripped his feet. He could hear the boys' laughter behind him, growing louder, older, deeper. Not a child's anymore, a predator's. He burst from the tree lean and onto the lot, but the rest stop was gone. Just highway now, unbroken, smooth pavement. No lot, no building, no sign. His cruiser was gone too, replaced by a different vehicle, a dark green sedan, its engine running. Jared approached it slowly. Inside on the back seat sat the same pair of children's shoes, and in the front seat, himself, dead, wide eyes, open mouth, fingers curled around a radio mic. Jared screamed and woke up in his bed, soaked in sweat. The clock blinked, 3:17 a.m. He was back in his apartment, breathing hard. He leapt from the bed, ran to the door, and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but when he turned around, the child's shoes were there, on the floor. Next to them, a map drawn in crayon, showing the rest stop, but with new roads branching from it, spiraling, looping, stretching in unnatural patterns like veins. At the center of the map was a red X, and scrawled above it in childlike handwriting, "Come find me, you already did." The next day, Jared filed his resignation. No one understood why. He moved across the country, changed his name, changed his number, bought an old cabin in the woods of Oregon, but it didn't matter. The shoes followed. One night, he found them on the porch. Another time, in the fireplace. One morning, they were in his fridge, sitting atop a carton of milk. Then came the calls. Static, crying, laughter. One night, he woke up in his car, parked at Rest Stop 44. He had no memory of driving there, but the time on the dashboard read 3 a.m. He opened the glove compartment. Inside, the crayon map. He burned it. He threw away the shoes. He even tried to shoot them once. They always came back. And then it stopped. Months passed. Peace. Silence. No crying. No shoes. No photos. Jared almost believed it was over until he saw the newspaper. Officer Eric Daniels found dead at mile marker 123. Engine running. No sign of struggle. The photo in the article showed the back seat of the officer's cruiser. 2 shoes. Pink. Glittering. The same pair. Now they were moving on, not to torment Jared, but to grow. And Jared knew in his bones, in his marrow, that Rest Stop 44 wasn't a place anymore. It was a seed, and it had started to spread. 6 months later, Jared Minder was living off the grid, deep in Oregon's Cascade Range, far from cell towers, cities, and people. He hadn't spoken to another soul in weeks. The silence was supposed to help him sleep. It didn't. Each night, he'd wake up at exactly 3:17 a.m., heart pounding, drenched in cold sweat. No dreams, no nightmares, just the same empty chill in the cabin air. And always that feeling like someone was watching him from just beyond the tree line, something waiting to be remembered. He kept a gun under his pillow and a flashlight taped to his headboard, but none of it mattered, because when the radio crackled back to life, he didn't own a radio anymore. The static buzzed from behind the wall. Low at first, then a child's voice broke through. "Officer, come back." "He's not done with you." Jared bolted upright in bed. There was again the voice, that same broken plea. Except this time, it wasn't from the radio. It came from inside the house. From the kitchen, he moved slowly, gun in hand, barefoot on cold wooden floors. A faint glow spilled from under the pantry door. His hand shook as he reached for the knob. He threw it open. Darkness. Silence. And then a click. Behind him, the front door slammed shut. He turned and saw the swing set again. Not in memory, not in a dream, but there, somehow, inside his living room, the same rusted chains, the same creaking motion, the same boy, sitting, smiling, and swinging. "You're the one who ran," the boy said. Jared took a step back, breath caught in his throat. "What do you want from me?" To remember, the room around them melted. Timber walls dissolving into fog. His cabin vanished. He was back at Rest Stop 44, though it no longer looked old and ruined. It was rebuilt, fresh concrete, flickering vending machines, working lights. The parking lot was full of cars, but no people, just running engines. Wipers swiped across clean windshields. Radios played static-filled music. Trunks hung open. Luggage spilled on the asphalt, but there wasn't a single person anywhere. He stepped forward, disoriented. The boy still swung, now by the restroom entrance. "You left me here," the boy said again, voice trembling, distorted. "You all did." Then the air shifted. The cars began to fade. The walls of the rest stop peeled like old wallpaper. The lights flickered and died. The trees bent inward as if leaning to listen. And Jared saw them, dozens of children, standing still among the trees. Some missing eyes, some stitched at the mouth, some with shadows instead of faces. But they all wore shoes, his shoes, and they spoke in one voice. "You brought him. Now you can't leave either." Suddenly, Jared was pulled backward into the restroom. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. Stalls slammed shut. The mirrors warped, showing not his reflection but other versions of himself. Some dead, some screaming, some still holding the radio mic, begging for help that never came. And in the sink basin, water began to rise, then turn red, then bubble. A hand reached up from it, small, childlike, and grabbed Jared's wrist. He fought, screamed, pulled back, but it was no use. The grip was ice cold and real. It dragged him into the sink that should have been only inches deep, but he fell, and fell, and fell. When he hit the ground, it knocked the air from his lungs. He was no longer in a bathroom. He stood in a hallway of doors, hundreds of them stretching into the black, each one marked with a name. He stepped forward and read them. Eric Daniels, Bethany Sanderson, Tommy Minter. That last one made him stop. He opened it. Inside, he saw himself as a child, curled in bed, blanket pulled over his head. And in the corner of the room, the boy from the swing, watching, waiting. Jared stepped in, and the room shut behind him. "Why me?" he asked. "Why do you keep showing me this?" The boy turned. "Because you forgot." "Forgot what?" The boy took a step forward. "That it started with you." Jared shook his head. No, I never." But the memory hit him like a punch. A repressed image from decades ago. He had been there, as a child. Summer vacation, 1992. His parents fought constantly, so they took the back roads to avoid traffic and stopped at an old rest stop 44. And there, in the middle of the night, he'd wandered out of the car because he heard a voice, a crying child. He followed it into the woods, found the swing set, found the boy. He didn't tell anyone, didn't help, just stared, then ran, and never looked back. That night, another child disappeared from the nearby town. It made the local news. Jared's family left the next day. His parents divorced a year later. He repressed it, buried it, but the rest stop never forgot. It had marked him, branded him, and waited until he returned. "Is this punishment?" Jared asked. "No," the boy said. "It's justice." The doors behind him slammed open. Wind howled down the corridor. All the children he saw before now stood behind him, and they were pointing at his name, his own door. Jared backed away. "I'm not like you. I didn't kill anyone." "But you let it happen," the boy whispered. "That's how it feeds. Not on murder, on memory, on guilt. You remembered. That's all it needed." Suddenly, the floor cracked. The world trembled. The children screamed. Everything turned black. Jared woke up in the back of a car, a cruiser. His own, maybe not. The sky above was overcast. Fog rolled over the hills. The road sign ahead read, "Welcome to Missouri. Rest stop 44, next exit." He scrambled out of the vehicle. It was running. Keys in the ignition. Radio silent. No one around. But on the passenger seat, a folder marked "Missing Persons Case, Jared Minter." Inside, photos of him. Reports of his resignation. A statement from Bethany Sanderson, dated 2 weeks prior. She claimed she had seen Jared standing by her mailbox in the middle of the night. But Jared had never gone back there. He opened the glove compartment. The children's shoes were there again. This time larger. Not toddler size anymore. They were his size. That night, a rookie cop named Mason Green took the call. Rest stop 44. 911 hang-up. Crying heard on the line. He arrived on scene to find a single cruiser parked, engine running, lights off. Inside, no officer, but 2 shoes, a size 10, still warm. Locals say the rest stop isn't even on the map anymore, but people still find it, especially those who buried something, those who left someone behind, those who were once children and forgot what they saw. The road always remembers, and Rest Stop 44 always waits. Somewhere between sleep and waking, between silence and static, between memory and guilt. If you made it this far, you're one of the brave ones. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a night on the dark side. This has been another tale from Mr. DarXnights, where nightmares don't end when you wake up. Sleep tight if you can.